The flickering porch light cast an eerie glow on the ransacked living room. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs like a frantic bird in a cage. Empty. Everything was empty. Where was the giant flat-screen TV they'd saved months for? The cozy armchair Mark always napped in? Even the silver platter Sarah inherited from her grandmother was missing. A cold dread seeped into her stomach, a feeling deeper than the simple loss of material things. It was a violation, a chilling reminder that their safe haven had been breached. Mark, his face pale under the harsh light bulb Sarah managed to find, knelt by the overturned drawers. Clothes lay scattered like fallen leaves, their once organized space a chaotic mess. He held up a single, silver earring, Sarah's favorite pair. It felt like a taunt, a cruel reminder of the life they'd built together, now scattered and broken. The police arrived, a symphony of flashing lights and clipped questions. They dusted for fingerprints, their faces grim, and offered the same bleak possibility. Stolen goods rarely find their way back. Days turned into weeks, the silence in the hollowed-out house a constant reminder of their loss. The insurance claim, a small consolation prize, couldn't replace the sentimental value of stolen memories. One evening, Sarah stumbled upon the forgotten disposable camera tucked away in a drawer. A forgotten impulse from their date night before the break-in. A sliver of hope, fragile as a butterfly's wing, fluttered in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, they'd captured an image, a face, anything that could lead them to the culprits. The next day, the pharmacy technician's smile faltered as he handed Sarah the developed photos. The first few were unremarkable, blurry shots of the street, a half-eaten hot dog stand, a stray cat. But then, her breath hitched. There it was, clear as day. Two figures, their backs to the camera, rummaging through their drawers. A thrill of horror shot through her, but there was something else too. Something undeniably strange. In the grainy image, the figures held objects, not the usual stolen goods, but something far more bizarre. Sarah's stomach lurched. Those weren't watches or cameras in their hands. They were toothbrushes. Her and Mark's toothbrushes, glinting accusingly in the flash. Panic clawed at her throat. This wasn't a regular burglary. This was something unhinged. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a chilling fear that gnawed at her sanity. Who steals toothbrushes? And why stick them? Well, the answer was horrifyingly clear in the next few pictures. Each image was a grotesque tableau. The figures contorted in expressions of pain and satisfaction. It defied logic. Was it some kind of twisted ritual? A message? The last picture sent a fresh wave of terror crashing over her. The figures, now facing the camera, their faces obscured by shadows, held up a single object, the disposable camera, a manic glint in their unseen eyes. The police were baffled. The photos were unsettling, yes, but offered no real leads. Sarah and Mark were left with more questions than answers. The emptiness in their house was now haunted by something far more sinister. The unsettling feeling of being watched, mocked even. Days bled into weeks, the silence punctuated only by the nagging hum of fear. Sarah started leaving the lights on all night, a feeble attempt to ward off the unseen. Then, one morning, a knock on the door shattered the tense quiet. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat. It was the police again, but this time, their faces were grimmer than usual. "We found them," the officer said, his voice heavy, "down by the abandoned warehouse." "But," he hesitated, his gaze flickering to the photos clutched tightly in Sarah's hand. It wasn't pretty. The warehouse was a labyrinth of shadows and dust. A metallic tang hung heavy in the air. As they entered, Sarah's foot caught on something soft. A single, silver earring, its mate. Her stomach lurched. The bodies were sprawled grotesquely on the floor, their faces contorted in a silent scream. But it wasn't the violence of the scene that chilled Sarah to the bone. It was the objects scattered around them. Dozens of toothbrushes, all brands, all shapes and sizes. And in each dead hand, a single, disposable camera, its lens reflecting a distorted image of themselves. Sarah felt her knees buckle. The room spun, the metallic tang turning acrid in her throat. Mark's hand grasped hers, a lifeline in the swirling chaos. The cameras, the toothbrushes, it was a horrific mirror image of their own violation. A macabre performance art staged by their deranged burglars. The police, used to the grim realities of their job, were shaken. This wasn't a random act of violence. It was something meticulously planned. A chilling display targeting not just their possessions, but a deeper sense of security. The lead investigator, a woman named Detective Ramirez, studied the photos with a furrowed brow. These cameras, she said, her voice low, they were all activated just before the final picture. They must have taken photos of themselves at every break-in. A horrifying implication dawned on Sarah. Weren't these the only things left behind? The cameras and the toothbrushes? Were they trophies? A twisted calling card left for the victims to find? The thought sent a new wave of terror through her. How many other houses had they hit? How many disposable cameras, filled with horrifying images, were waiting to be developed? The news spread like wildfire. The Toothbrush Burglars became a local sensation, a terrifying urban legend. Sleepless nights turned into a living nightmare for Sarah and Mark. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside the window, sent shivers down their spine. They moved, desperate to outrun the unseen eyes that haunted their every move. But the fear followed them. One morning, in their new apartment, Sarah received a package. A small, innocuous box with no return address. Inside, nestled in shredded packing peanuts, was a single disposable camera. Her scream tore through the silence, chilling Mark to the bone. The photos were worse than the first. This time, the figures weren't just holding toothbrushes. They were using them. The images were a grotesque parody of dental hygiene, a descent into madness captured in horrifying detail. The final picture, though, was different. It showed a single toothbrush, intricately carved with a date, the night they were moving out of their old house. The message was clear. They were being stalked. Detective Ramirez, now a constant presence in their lives, was at a loss. They had no leads, no suspects, just a trail of disturbing photographs and a growing sense of dread. Sarah and Mark were put under police protection, a small comfort in the face of an unseen enemy. One night, as Sarah lay awake, a new thought struck her. The burglars were obsessed with toothbrushes, a symbol of personal hygiene, of cleanliness. Was this their undoing? Could they be using the disposable cameras themselves, somehow documenting their twisted rituals in the very tool they used to taunt their victims? The next morning, she presented her theory to Detective Ramirez. The detective's eyes narrowed. It was a long shot, but it was the only lead they had. They traced the disposable cameras, a dead end at first. But then, a breakthrough. A small, independent film developer on the outskirts of town, known for processing odd requests, came into focus. A stakeout was set up. Days turned into weeks, the tension thick in the air. Then, one evening, two figures emerged from the shop, their faces obscured by hoodies. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. It was them. The chase was desperate. a frantic scramble through the back alleys of the city. But Sarah and Mark, fueled by a desperate need for closure, pushed themselves to the limit. Finally, cornered in an abandoned building, the figures turned. They were young, barely out of their teens, their faces pale and gaunt. But it was the look in their eyes that chilled Sarah to the bone. A hollow emptiness, a void where sanity should have been. The police swarmed in, apprehending the burglars with ease. But the victory felt hollow. In a sterile interrogation room, the two young men babbled incoherently, their minds fractured beyond repair. They spoke of a compulsion, a dark ritual that demanded a cleansing, a twisted logic fueled by the stolen toothbrushes. The trial was a media circus. The details of the case, the disturbing photographs, were splashed across the news. Yet, even with a conviction, Sarah and Mark knew there would be no real justice. Their sense of security was shattered, replaced by a lingering paranoia. Years later, they still carried the scars. The disposable camera, now a grim reminder, sat on their bookshelf. But they had rebuilt their lives, brick by broken brick. They learned to live with the fear, a dull ache in the background. One day, a knock on the door. Sarah hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. But it was just the mailman, a package addressed to them. Her breath caught in her throat. Could it be them again? With trembling hands, Sarah opened the package. Relief washed over her as she saw it was just a box of greeting cards, a belated birthday present from her aunt. Yet, the incident served as a stark reminder of the lingering fear. Life, however, had a way of moving forward. Sarah and Mark eventually found solace in a new routine. They fostered rescue dogs, the unconditional love filling the void left by the violation. Their home, though not the same, held a newfound warmth. One quiet evening, curled up on the couch with the dogs snoring softly at their feet, Sarah absent-mindedly picked up the disposable camera. A morbid curiosity gnawed at her. Maybe, just maybe, there was something they hadn't seen before, something that could finally bring closure. With shaking hands, she loaded the camera into an old photo printer they kept tucked away in a closet. The printer whirred to life, spitting out the photos one by one. The usual grotesque scenes flickered past, contorted figures, toothbrushes, a chilling sense of madness. But then, something unexpected. The last picture. It wasn't the usual image of themselves reflected in the camera lens. This time, it was different. It was a picture of a young girl, barely a teenager, with wide, curious eyes. Behind her, a familiar house loomed, their old house. A cold dread settled in Sarah's stomach. This wasn't one of the burglars. This was someone new. Someone who, perhaps, had found the remaining disposable cameras hidden in the house after they moved. Someone who might be continuing the twisted ritual. Sarah slammed the photo down on the coffee table. Fear, once a dull ache, now flared into a burning ember. They couldn't let this cycle continue. The next day, Sarah contacted Detective Ramirez. The case, though long closed, was reopened. This time, with a new lead and a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah and Mark were determined to put a stop to the madness for good. They wouldn't let the Toothbrush Burglars, or whoever followed in their footsteps, win. The investigation took a sharp turn. The girl in the photo, identified as Emily, lived just a few blocks from Sarah and Mark's old house. She was a quiet child, often overlooked, with a troubled home life. Detective Ramirez suspected she might have stumbled upon the hidden cameras during renovations in the house and, drawn to their disturbing nature, become the next pawn in the cycle. Reaching out to Emily proved a delicate task. A social worker, familiar with her situation, acted as a bridge. Slowly, a story emerged. Emily, lonely and neglected, found a strange sense of belonging in the ritualistic photos. She saw them as a way to connect with something, anything, outside her own isolation. The challenge now wasn't apprehending a criminal, but intervening in a troubled life. Sarah, haunted by the echo of her own violation, volunteered to connect with Emily. Their meetings were tentative at first, filled with awkward silences and stolen glances. But Sarah, with a wellspring of empathy born from her own experience, persevered. She spoke of her love for dogs, the unconditional trust they offered. She brought photos of her rescue pups, their playful antics a stark contrast to the disturbing images Emily was fixated on. Slowly, a spark ignited in the girl's eyes. The allure of the creepy cameras waned, replaced by the genuine warmth Sarah offered. It wasn't a quick fix. There were setbacks, moments when Emily relapsed, drawn back to the darkness. But with Sarah's unwavering support and professional therapy, Emily began to heal. She found solace in caring for the rescue dogs alongside Sarah and Mark, the pack a symbol of their unlikely, yet powerful bond. The house remained empty, a silent monument to a chilling past. But within its walls, a new story unfolded. The disposable cameras, once instruments of terror, became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that could lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. For Sarah and Mark, closure finally arrived, not in the punishment of others, but in the act of offering compassion and forging an unexpected connection. The fear, though never truly gone, became a whisper, a reminder of their strength and the importance of reaching out, even when faced with the seemingly unimaginable.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more similar horror stories.